Chat, what's up, man? Look, the name of the internet out here in Las Vegas, Nevada is called Cox Communications. And sometimes they live up to their name. Sometimes they are fucking dicks with their service. So anyways, all jokes aside, we lost connection. We back again. We're back. We left off on Errol Spence, and we were ready to go over some of the Terence Crawford notes. Let's just wait for everyone to make their way back into the chat and pick up where we were leaving off at just now. So I'm gonna just give a minute, and we'll continue where we left off, chat. So hopefully all 800 people. What's up, Bronco Kid? Bronco Kid, spread the word. Tell all the people to come back to the chat, brother. Shazak, what's up, Shazak? I'm just gonna let some people make their way back into us, and we'll pick up where we left off, man. We were just about done with our initial Errol Spence notes, and then we got to get to the Terence Crawford notes. So let's just see here. Toby Powell, have you rewatched Loma Haney? I did. We did a live on that the morning after. Please go check it out if you want the full checks. Three Pumps, what's up, Three Pumps? Steven Smith, shout out to Toronto. Lionel Thomas, tickets should go on sale soon. Steve Brooks, peace. Everyone, make your way back into the chat. Make your way back into the chat. We're sorry about technical difficulties. Everyone, make your way back in here. Let's just wait another minute or two to get everyone in here. So, where we were leaving off, we left off with Spence. And again, Crawford, he prides himself on that wiry, deceptive power and strength. And, maybe that's his whole point. He knows on tape it looks like certain fighters are stronger than him. But once you get in there, that's not the case. So, we had about 800 people rocking with us, man. So we're only up to about 200. I want to let some more people get in here before we continue with the breakdown. Thoughts so far, though, for those of you guys who were catching the first initial Errol Spence notes, let me know what you guys think. Steven Smith, how'd you score Haney Loma? I thought either 114, 114, or 115, 113 Loma was probably the right scorecard in that fight, but I do got to rewatch it again. Been busy. And you guys can check out that Haney Loma live from a day or two ago if you guys want to go back and recap all that. But man, this is such a shame. I feel like we lost a lot of people from the previous chat, and that's a shame, man. We were cooking with the knowledge. Let's all right, I'll begin in just a moment here. Tell all our friends that left the last live to come back to this one. All right. Well, looks like we're just going to have to rock. So, on to the notes for Terence Bud Crawford. Legs aren't the same as they were a year ago for Terence Bud Crawford, not a year ago, some years ago. If you just go back, and you guys don't have to take you guys don't have to take my word for it on anything. Go back and review the tape yourselves and come up with your own conclusions from what I'm saying. But legs aren't the same as some years ago. The two fights I would use as a perfect example was his first fight at 147 pounds against Jeff Horn and his last fight at 140 pounds against Victor Postal from 2016 and 2017. And just look at how effortlessly he can move left to right to left, laterally, cover so much ground and space around the ring. Now his legs are a little more sluggish. They're a little more heavier and planted, which only makes this fight more exciting because I'll save that for later, but really the only way this fight wasn't going to deliver action and stylistic-wise is if Crawford had his legs from a few years ago where he could fight a very defense-first fight and limit and reduce some of the exchanges that would happen between both fighters. His legs aren't really able to do that anymore like they were against Postal, against Horn. So that kind of subtracts from the equation one of the potential ways this fight couldn't live up to the hype that people are hoping for. Legs look fine against Porter, says Henry Washington. They did look good against... You make a fair point, Henry Washington, because his legs look better against Porter than they did against Avanesian. And I think that's because he understood the level of opposition he was faced in front of. I'm not saying his legs are shot, guys. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying his legs are more sluggish than they were a few years ago. No doubt about it. And talk to any of the old-timers in boxing the old trainers, they all used to say, the old phrase was, the last thing to go is the power, and the first thing to go is the legs. That's what they all used to say. So, still the best at punching in the exchanges in the game. Crazy arsenal and punch selection. And I'll type it right here. And vision. Crazy arsenal, punch selection, and vision in the exchanges. In a way, he kind of reminds me of Juan Manuel Marquez in that regard, where you could hit Marquez. Marquez would get hit in these fights and would start slow, kind of like Crawford. But once you got you into the firefight and you were exchanging, no one could keep up with his counterpunching, and he was an offensive counterpuncher. And that's what Terence Crawford is. He's an offensive counterpuncher. And I think in the exchanges, nobody is better offensively in the exchanges than Terence Crawford right now in boxing. He can find the openings in between punches like nobody else right now. With the uppercut, with the hook, with the straight, with anything, he could find it. And he's faster with his uppercuts and hooks than Errol Spence, and he's got the sneaky power. He's got the punch you don't see coming. Again, Spence has got that club you into submission, heavy-handed, country-strong punching power. Crawford's got the more explosive, snappy shot that if you don't see it coming, it could begin the end. It could hurt you, and begin the end. So, now, and again, I said this, Crawford's legs not being the same, it means he's getting hit more and more as the years have gone by, but he still gets into this beautiful rhythm in range, and can slide and slip shots as the fight goes on with devastating counters. And he just makes you miss by an inch, and he does have more, Crawford gets hit a lot, not a lot, but he gets hit too. But he does have a little bit more sauce, a little bit more mixture in terms of defensive moves, and he uses a lot of them to counter. He's not just using them to get out of dodge, make you miss, reset. He likes to just, make you miss by an inch and bang, come with the counter, bang, right here, bang. And so that's what Crawford's got. He's more dynamic than Spence, more unpredictable, and he has more speed than Spence. Spence has the better jab. Spence throws more punches. Spence is more fundamentally sound, and he's bigger and stronger, but Crawford's more creative. He's more dynamic, and he has better hand speed than Errol Spence. Crawford will also let me just say what's up. Okay, good. We're up to at least 300 people. We're not at least at 800, but at least we're up to 300 again. So Crawford will leave his chin in the air when he lets his combinations go. Sometimes while throwing them from places like his waist, while Spence will throw them up top fundamentally. And that could be a problem for Terence Crawford, because him dropping his lead hand, doing different looks with his hand positioning, it makes him more creative and dynamic offensively than Spence. But sometimes he'll shoot from the hip. He'll have the lead hand low, and he's looking for the opening in the exchange, and he'll let some of the punches come from down here in the exchange, and Spence is going to shoot mostly everything from right here, from up top. And Crawford, when he does that in the exchanges, as amazing as he is in those exchanges, he leaves his chin up sometimes when he does it. And the punches are coming from down here sometimes. And that's what got him caught and got his head caught up against Sean Porter a number of rounds, especially early when they were fighting. And Errol Spence, if he's shooting everything from up here, it gives him less creativity than Crawford. But with Crawford shooting off from below the waist or from at the waist and with his chin up, Spence could catch him just as nasty as Crawford is catching him in those exchanges. So that's something to look for. Because like I just said, that allows Crawford to be more creative, but it also can be exploited by the fundamentals of Spence. So Everything Boxing says, Sean, salute. What's up, Gustavo Fontalba? What's up? Of course, my man Bronco Kid. So now some other notes in this thing, man. So those were just some of my initial notes. Let's get to some other notes, man. So there's a little bit of an equalizer here at play because Crawford he's older. but Spence has had injuries, and he's had to make one weight class his entire career. So there's a little bit of an equalizer there. But honestly, even though Spence has had to make that one weight class long in his career, and he's talked about moving up to 154, he looked stronger against Yordenis Ugas at 147 than I've seen him in a long time. He didn't look as strong at 47 that he did against Kell Brook, Lamont Peterson when he fought Sean Porter in 2019. He definitely didn't quite look like that against Danny Garcia in his first fight back from the accident. But against Yordenis Ugas, that big tank looked like he was back. Like he rehydrated very well. I know he got his strength, his diet coach and all that. And so I think that even though Spence has been having to make that one weight class a long time, he's he looked comfortable at the weight in the last fight. Oops, my bad. And we talked about that a little earlier. One of the next right here, yeah, that the fight is pretty much guaranteed to deliver, because the only way it wouldn't have is Crawford fighting a very defense-first fight with the kind of legs he had around 16, 17, postal horn, and that would have potentially reduced some of the exchanges in the fight. But with him not having really the feet to do that like he once was, it means he's going to be in front of Spence more often, which means more exchanges, more action. So, and then, again, this... Let me know if I'm flying by too fast, Chad. I think losing the live halfway through, that fucked us up a little bit, but we're back to half the people. We're up to 400 again. But yeah, Crawford right now, and I said this to begin the last live before it cut out on us, he's like a 2010 Kobe, 1998 Jordan, 2020 LeBron version of himself getting into this fight with Spence. All those guys in those years, Kobe Bryant in 2010 was still top 5 NBA players, still the finals MVP, but he wasn't the force of nature he was in 2003, in 2006 when he dropped 81 points. Michael Jordan, 98, still, the best player in the league, still MJ, but not the guy that was scoring 55 points in the finals in 93 against the Suns, or the guy that went 72 and 10 in 96. LeBron, same thing. It's their last hurrah. And I think Crawford's in the last hurrah stages of his prime. LeBron, that wasn't, Cleveland athletic LeBron or Miami LeBron. That was him towards the end. Still LeBron, still that dude. And that's the stage I think Crawford's at heading into this fight with Spence. And again, Crawford is so deadly once he gets into a rhythm and starts staying in punch range, and he invites exchanges. Early in the fight, when he's not as comfortable and he's getting his comfort down, that's when he's using his legs. That's when he's losing early rounds, getting touched up by right hands lately. But once he feels like he could take whatever the other guy's got, and he settles into that punching range and that rhythm, look out. That's when he starts just sliding, catching and sliding just by an inch, and then making you pay with vicious counters. That's when it's a problem. But the question is he going to be comfortable settling into that rhythm and standing in there, even with his, slickness as he catches fire, with a dude bigger and stronger than him who doesn't stop throwing and punches very, very fucking hard? Will Crawford stay in the kitchen the way he usually does against a guy like Errol Spence? Which, again, that's the next point. Spence is so dangerous to stay in front of with his relentless pace, his great jab, and his physical strength. Period. Add it up, and it's a fight that should actually stylistically deliver, and both guys are facing the best puncher they've ever faced. And neither guy's been down in a title fight, but we've both seen both of them buzzed. Crawford by Gamboa, Crawford by Mean Machine Kaviaskis, Spence by Yordenis Ugas in his last fight. Spence fought a tall southpaw. Maybe, I can't remember. This was a tall Hispanic kid that Spence fought as a prospect. And he buzzed Spence with a straight, I can't remember if the kid was a southpaw or orthodox, but he used his backhand as two, and he buzzed Errol Spence. So these guys have been hurt and buzzed by lesser fighters and lesser punches than each other. So you got two guys who stylistically should lead to a lot of exchanges. two guys who have great offenses, two guys that are alpha dogs. That's another thing that I didn't even put in the notes, was that Crawford and Spence are two alpha dogs. They're used to, no matter what group they're in, whatever pack, they're that dude. They're the guy that nobody could whoop, that nobody's going to talk crazy to. If anything, they'll talk crazy to whoever they feel like in that group. And they've always, Spence calls himself the big fish. They've always been the big fish. They've never lost a professional fight, either one of them. And they both are highly, and that's what's going to make it a great fight, is there's two alpha dogs who really think they can't lose this fight. And stylistically, when you play out the sweet science of it all, it makes sense that it's going to be a great fight. De La Hoya Trinidad not living up to the hype, that always had the potential for De La Hoya to use the game plan he used. He was 28 years old. Crawford's 35. He's not going to be able to use the De La Hoya Trinidad game plan to spoil like a great fight. It's not going to happen. So I look forward to it because forget hype. We're fight hype. The hype of the fight is one thing, but the logic, the science of the fight, when you actually break it down, it logically leads you to it probably being a great fight. So can't wait for that. Okay, seriously, guys, my last notes for today, and then we'll just freestyle. We'll just talk some boxing. Maybe I'll play some Undisputed with Crawford. But neither guy has been down with their chins against lesser punchers. But yeah, and seriously, again, no matter how much Crawford prides himself on his strength and how deceptive and wiry he may be, Spence just looks bigger, younger, and stronger on tape. He just does. He just looks like the bigger, younger, stronger man on tape. And, Crawford prides himself on that deceptive strength. We'll see. Crawford is great in the exchanges. I favor him to get the better of them with better hand speed, vision, and tool set. Spence's jab, pace, sharpness, strength, youth, body attack are all going to cause Crawford serious problems, particularly early. However, Crawford can adjust, he could change the fight, and he could score a knockout by finding an array of power shots. I could easily see Spence's strength and well-placed assault to the head and body, clubbing, heavy-handed shots, breaking down a smaller Crawford, still give the edge to the dog from Omaha. Give the edge. I'm not making a pick yet. Spence's head returned to the center multiple times against guys like Ugas in the 6th and the 7th. His response, Errol Spence's response, his adjustment is usually just, he's a true fighter. When he gets hit, when you hit Spence, his adjustment is usually to turn it up. But that's turning it up. That's not a true adjustment. It's not that he finds a new wrinkle here and there. He just turns it up. You hit me, now I'm going to hit you 4 or 5 times harder. And against a guy like Terence Crawford, that's kind of what he wants. He's a counterpuncher. The more you come at him, the more opportunities it gives him. So I don't know how that's going to work out for Errol Spence, who his response to other guys having success is just turn it up. And I don't know how that works against a guy who wants those counterpunch opportunities. But the question is, right, like right here, can he withstand the heat blow for blow with a welterweight this strong and find his openings he always finds, or will he be hurt in a way he hasn't been before, where he isn't thinking as comfortably? That vision, the openings, they're not coming as easily to him because the nervous system, the brain is saying, ouch, 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 from the constant jab, from the constant output of Errol Spence. Ouch. Oh, there's the opening. Ouch. That type of thing. Because a great counterpuncher slows down the pace against an aggressive fighter who likes to throw 100 punches or so. Like Mayweather Maidana. First fight, Maidana's able to get off around 100 punches a round. But once Floyd really played counterpuncher in the second fight, it slowed the pace down tremendously. However, Floyd also had his legs that night to slow it down, and that's what I'm questioning with Crawford. So it's a tug of war there. It's a tug of war. It's strength versus strength. It's a guy that wants to throw 100 punches, wants to come right at you and do it, versus a guy who wants you to come right to him and throw punches so he can counter. It's strength versus strength, and it's a tug of war. Who will break? Will Spence acquiesce by becoming more timid and hesitant, and his punch output will decrease? Or no, will Spence's chin surprise even people like me? Because I know Spence has a good chin, but Crawford has knocked everybody out since 2016. So I gotta see if he could take the power of Crawford, and he could just keep fighting at the normal pace he can. Then Crawford's in trouble. You know, Crawford can't slow him down. He might be in trouble. And so, you know, in this fight, I say Spence, he's going to start fast, but he can also build momentum, and he's been very, very strong in the late rounds. Both guys have been great in the championship rounds. So, we'll see. And I see this kind of being like, I could see this fight playing out one or two ways, to use an NBA analogy. Shaquille O'Neal, Hakeem Olajuwon, with Errol Spence being Shaquille O'Neal and Terence Crawford being Hakeem Olajuwon, or Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, with Errol Spence being Tim Duncan and Garnett being Crawford. And what do I mean by that? I mean, when Shaq and Hakeem played, Shaq tried to play bully ball against Hakeem Olajuwon, and he had a lot of success doing it. But Hakeem ultimately beat him with finesse and more moves, more versatility. That's how Hakeem beat Shaq. That's how Terence beats Errol Spence. More finesse, more versatility, more skills, right? But it could go like Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, where it's like, okay, Kevin Garnett, he's more athletic. He could step outside and hit jumpers. He could ball handle like a guard sometimes. He's a better passer. He could do all these wonderful things. But the big fundamental, Tim Duncan, Errol Spence, is just a winner. He's just going to win. He's bigger, like Duncan was bigger than Garnett. He's bigger, and he's just going to win. He's going to win through the fundamentals. He may not be able to do all the sexy sauce that KG does, that Terence Crawford does, but the big fundamental, Tim Duncan, Errol Spence, is going to win, being the bigger man with better fundamentals. So I could see that happening, you know, either way. And I don't know how Crawford handles that southpaw jab, because Nonito Donaire once broke this down to me when Pacquiao was getting ready to fight Spence. And you know what? Fuck that. Nonito Donaire will explain that point so much better than me. Let me look that up right now, chat, while we're moving and grooving. Hold up. Let me look that up right now. Nonito Donaire, Spence Pacquiao. Damn, that's like the first thing that came up. Here it was. This is when I interviewed Nonito Donaire about Spence Pacquiao. You guys can hear that in the chat, right? You can hear that awful ad music.
Okay. Let you go. I gotta ask, of course, about Pacquiao Spence. Do you think Pacquiao wins that fight? How do you see that fight going?
I mean, like every
so here, and I'll, real quick, I'll go back to my notes just so you guys understand the reference point we're getting at, which is I don't know how Crawford handles that southpaw jab. He hasn't had to deal with it from that angle, right? He's really a southpaw, you know, like he's a switch hitter, but really after the second or third round in his fights, he switches southpaw and stays southpaw. So here we go.
Fight, there's always that chance of winning and losing, right? It's how his results are. You know, he looked good in his last fight. Can he keep that up like they did to me?
Here
right?
it is. I'm gonna skip ahead to
that's
a big young guy.
Well, I just it's very difficult because we've never seen him in a southpaw match with a caliber like Spence.
Here it is,
especially with the reach. Because I mean, if you have two southpaws, right?
Yep.
For him, he likes to do this, right? Well, the jab is just right there, right there. So, is he gonna be able to get out of it? You know, it's the question that people is constantly asking. You know, because on here, he can always go here, or he can always go to the side.
You could always get that angle. You could always get that angle. Just to help Nonito, who obviously doesn't need much. But what Nonito's getting at is Crawford, when he makes that switch to southpaw, fighting those orthodox guys, he gets that angle. He gets that angle where his lead foot, he could get to the outside of the other guy's lead foot. Other guys right here, he can get to the outside of it and step outside from here, get to their blind side, and line his chin up with the straight left hand. Against another southpaw versus southpaw, it's just like orthodox versus orthodox. That angle's not there. Just getting that like Crawford against the orthodox, when he's southpaw, he'll do double jab and step over to his right to get the angle off the double jab, and he finds openings off that. Same openings aren't going to be there with Errol Spence because it's southpaw versus southpaw in that scenario. And I wonder if Crawford will combat some of that with fighting orthodox. try to do the same shit you do southpaw versus orthodox as orthodox versus southpaw. If he pulled that shit off, that'd be some incredible sweet science right there. Let me let Nonito finish.
You can't go here. It'll be like this. You know, it's like, yeah, it. So he has to strategize against a southpaw, a taller southpaw who has a good reach and who has a good jab. You know, and will it be very difficult for him? It could be very difficult for him.
What do you do? Do you use your feet, feints?
Feint is definitely the key, because you know he does this, right, and that's why for Spence is the jab, stepping up. For head is the feint, head movement, head movement, and getting in there.
You think Spence?
Now, obviously, he's talking about little short arm, you know, Manny Pacquiao, and against Terence Crawford, who has longer arms than Errol Spence, those freakish long arms that guys like Floyd had. They're 5'8", but their arms are like someone who's 5'11". Floyd had longer arms than Oscar De La Hoya, even though Oscar De La Hoya was 2.5 inches taller than Floyd. Spence is taller and bigger than Crawford, but Crawford actually has longer arms than him. So, you know, it's not quite the same comparison because it's different between. Let me see. Did I get Nonito on Spence and Crawford? And Queso Diamante, thank you, brother, for the super chat. Appreciate you, brother. Like you said, the whole hood's gonna show up for this. They did, and then the shit crapped out on us. But okay, this might be it. No, that wasn't when I talked. Here it was. Here's when I talked to Nonito about that. Now I'm just curious what.
Non-drowsy Claritin.
Nonito, man, you've given us some great breakdowns over the years. Thank you. Spence Ugas, man, what did you think of that fight, and what do you think, of course, of Spence Crawford?
Well, the Ugas fight with Spence started to
Ugas.
build up that momentum, and Spence Crawford, you know, I got to go with Crawford because the way Spence came in, he did an amazing job, but there was vulnerabilities there. You know, the lack of focus. You know, there was a time that he got focused. He dropped the mouthpiece, and you got to protect yourself at all time. If it was Crawford, it would have been very, very devastating. So stuff like that he has to learn to be more focused, right?
And when he got hurt by Ugas, it was with the kind of sneaky shots that Terence Crawford could land much worse. And part of why Spence got caught with those shots by Ugas is because his head returns back to the center most of the time whenever he's done punching. He will move his head off the line and dip it down to work levels to the body. Like I said, he has that little step-off shoulder roll where he fights long here and there. He'll pivot off with a little bit of a shoulder roll here and there. But for the most part, Spence is doing the fundamentally sound fight game. He's coming with the hands high, and when he finishes up his offense, his head usually returns to the center for the counter. And that's part of why Ugas caught him and hurt him. And little moments like that could be foreshadowing of a potential Crawford stoppage.
Again, I think it's an amazing fight. I mean, I think that is going to be a really close fight. It could be either way in that way, you know. But I think I have to give it to Crawford for his versatility.
Is he counterpunching? Is that a big thing for him?
NWA says, considering Sean thought Loma won the fight, I really don't care what he has to say. NWA, you say that while being in the chat. And my man, you know no one's ever going to always agree with everything you think, right? And that doesn't just invalidate all their opinions. That's a very stupid way to think, bro. It's, you know, it is. I didn't say it was a robbery. I'm not over here. I don't even want to talk about Haney Loma. I moved on. I'm ready to talk Spence Crawford. Thought it was a very close fight. First thing I said is it wasn't a robbery. I haven't even rewatched it. Just live, I thought I actually scored the fight a draw. So my official scorecard is 114-114. I gave Devin Haney rounds 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6. And I gave Lomachenko rounds 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And then, you know, Haney wins the 12. So I had it 6-6, but I felt that first round was very close. There was a few other swing rounds, but if you gave that first round to Lomachenko because of his flurry at the end, where he landed 2 head-snapping shots, and you score it for Lomachenko, that's 115-113 Lomachenko. But anyways, I digress. NWA, you are free to stay in the chat or you are free to leave. It's up to you, brother. But if you do stay, that does mean you care what I'm saying. So if you want to be real about not caring, you gotta bounce. You gotta get out of here.
Spence likes to throw 70, 80 punches around. Is that something the counter puncher could take advantage of?
100%. I mean, you know, Spence is he's straight out. You know, he's really right down the middle kind of guy, southpaw. You know, and but that's very difficult because people like to go outside. Sometimes you see Crawford going outside and then he gets caught right down the middle. And that's vulnerability for his part. But that's why he loves being a southpaw, or he's going to be right-handed for this fight because he likes that kind of thing.
Well, I remember with Pacquiao.
So he said. So there's Nonito touching on it right there. That Crawford might, throw us for a loop and fight orthodox. That's something I want to see if Crawford's going to do. Is try to do some of the things you do as a southpaw against an orthodox, as an orthodox against a southpaw. Problem with that is when you haven't been boxing a whole lot of rounds as an orthodox fighter, it's almost impossible to expect you to be as sharp as an orthodox fighter as you are as a southpaw. Boots Ennis is a guy that genuinely, to me, really is a switch hitter. He really does box half a round orthodox, half a round southpaw, one full round southpaw, the next round orthodox. He has two different kinds of arsenals in those two sets of punches, two stances. Crawford, to me, is really just a southpaw that can fight right-handed if he wants to. And he likes to start right-handed, I know that. But really, once he flips the southpaw switch, I've never seen him turn back. This fight, I wonder if he brings that out of the tool set. It's just that before you think he's just going to fight as good as a righty as he does as a lefty, he hasn't been boxing nearly as many rounds over the years as a righty. So I got a super chat from my man, David Williams. Thank you, brother. And we're all the way back to 800. We got everybody back in the chat. It's a beautiful thing. David Williams said, Crawford's history had a different level of competition than Spence. Spence had a much higher level of competition. Right, at first I thought you were saying the other way around. Spence will win without a doubt, and I am willing to make a betting wager. Damn, David. I'm not making my pick today. I made the joke that Crawford-Spence kind of played out like a Dragon Ball Z saga, like very, very prolonged and dragged out, and like a Dragon Ball Z saga, with a great conclusion at the end. After all this fucking bullshit and all this drawn-out stuff, they scrapped. They would give Frieza and Goku, Goku and Cell, whoever. They would deliver. They would deliver after subjecting us to all those episodes of filler. And that is how I think Spence Crawford's about to play out. After subjecting us to all that and the filler, it's going to deliver in the end. And but I'm gonna be on par with everything that's been Dragon Ball Z like, and I'm gonna delay my prediction. I give the edge to Crawford. But I give the edge to Crawford because of counterpunching. To put it simply, he's the best counterpuncher, offensive counterpuncher in the game, and I think that Spence is going to get off to a great start. He has a better jab than Terence, and early on, he knows how to start fights better than Terence, who likes to think and make adjustments as he goes along. And one problem for Crawford is once he makes the adjustment and starts to turn it up, he's faced with a guy who turns it up in the second half as well. So it's not going to be as easy as he's used to it, obviously. But I still want to wait to see the weigh-in. I want to go down to Texas to see Errol in person train. I want to see Terence train for this fight, even if it's only just their media days. And I'll wait until fight week to make a final call. But here on, what day is it? May 24th, I give the slightest of edges to Crawford. But I'm not dead set. That's not set in stone. The vibe of this fight is that it's Spence's fight to win. That's what the PBC is going to want. Is for this is the guy they've invested into, the younger guy who draws bigger crowds, bigger pay-per-view numbers. They're going to want Spence to win, and that could help him get the benefit of the doubt in a very close fight. That and his punch output. It's hard to beat. It's hard to win rounds off Errol. Sean Porter did it, but it's hard to win rounds off Errol Spence because of his punch output and his jab, his relentlessness. So, we'll see. But David Williams, thank you for the super chat, brother. Scotland Sensei, thank you, man. Says I got Spence. The bigger dog wins. He might. I still give the edge to the speed and the versatility and the creativeness of Crawford, but that's why I compared it to Duncan Garnett. It might just be like Duncan and Garnett. Yeah, Garnett, Crawford, versatile, quicker, can do all these wonderful things, but the other guy's just bigger and better. That might be the case. Adrian Wells said Errol Spence by 11th round knockout body shot. Thank you for the super chat, brother. He could hurt Crawford to the body in a way Crawford's never been hurt before. Again, this was in my notes. where was that? Yeah, right there. Talking about what you're talking about. You said Spence by 11th round knockout. Crawford can't go high guard for high guard on the inside with Spence. He can't do that. I know he thinks he's strong. I know he'll believe he's the harder puncher. But if he does that, Spence is going to eat him up. Spence is going to eat him up if they go toe-to-toe just on the inside. He's got to be like Hopkins or Ward in his own way. They have different moves and mechanics, but in terms of stepping off here and there and giving the angle on the slips to punch out of, he's got to be more on his... Because Hopkins and Ward would stay in the kitchen, especially Hopkins when he was young. Not talking about Hopkins when he got in his 40s, but Hopkins and Ward, they would stay in that kitchen. But they were very slick and smart in that kitchen and make you miss by just an inch and deliver the counter. And that's what Terence has to be doing. He can't be doing this. He can't go high guard for high guard with Errol Spence. He'll get eaten up on the inside doing that. He'll look like Teddy Atlas years ago. Back in, I was getting ready to interview Max Kellerman and Tim Bradley before the Lomachenko-Anthony Corolla fight. So this might be 2019 in LA. And Teddy Atlas tells me Spence is going to win that fight. I think Teddy favors Crawford now, but at the time Teddy favored Spence because he said Crawford's too light in the ass. And Crawford is too light in the ass from what I've seen to go high guard for high guard with Errol Spence. He can't fight him that way. Recent punch stats, big concern for Crawford because Errol Spence is out throwing him 2, sometimes 3-1. And I mean, that's valid information. We can let me bring up CompuBox just to do that. Hold on, I got a quick super chat to get to too. Henry Washington said Crawford has stopped every fighter that has pressured him. Yeah, and that's what I mean. It's strength on strength. It's a guy who likes the pressure versus a guy who wants you to do that. But he's never seen the kind of pressure, output, and jab and size and strength of Errol Spence. So he's going to get what he wants, but he could get more than he bargained for. We'll see. And let's take a look at some... Oh, Scotland Sensei, thank you for the super chat. Damn, throwing me the 20. I appreciate it. Let me get to the super chat, and then we'll compare some CompuBox numbers from their recent fights. But my man Scotland Sensei, thank you, brother. You too generous. You got to remember Spence fought Garcia and Porter in the styles they felt he couldn't. He boxed Garcia and stayed in the box with Sean. He didn't have to do that. Not doing that with Crawford, we're going to see an animal out of the cage. Scotland Sensei, I disagree about the Porter fight. I think that I have a slight disagreement with you on both fights. Even though I should just shut up and agree because you were nice enough to give me a super chat. But Sean Porter made him fight that fight. Sean Porter with his foot speed and strength and hand speed, underrated. He's always been underrated with his foot and his hand speed, Sean. He can cut distance with the best of them. And Sean Porter could cut. I'm not just saying this is my boy or whatever, but Sean can cut distance with his athleticism quicker than Crawford or Spence. He's faster on his feet than either one of them were, and I think it was his in and out, his foot speed that forced Spence into that kind of fight. Spence didn't have the kind of foot speed to just take his half steps back, control off the jab. Maybe he could have done that more, but that's not Errol. Errol is a dog. He wants to fight at the end of the day. And the physical dimensions of Mikey Garcia allowed him to fight very tall for all 12 rounds. Mikey was just smaller, shorter reach. Sean was was smaller with shorter reach too, but he's got that great in and out athleticism, that great burst in his lower half that allows him to cut range and jump in when the other fighter can't step back as quick as he steps in. So I think Sean Porter made it that kind of fight with Errol Spence. He didn't choose for it to be that kind of fight. And then with Mikey Garcia, yeah, he kept it long against a guy whose physical dimensions he could do that with. But it's man, and he beat the shit out of Mikey Garcia. I was at that fight ringside in Texas. They probably should have stopped that fight 2 or 3 rounds before Mikey made the final bell. So I'm not criticizing Errol. He fought a fantastic fight that fight. He did. But he didn't stop him. And even though, yeah, he boxed with him more, he hit Mikey with all his best shots. He hit him with the straight left hand a million times. He even started sweeping the left hand to get more power on it. And Mikey ate that shit for all 12. So I do believe in Spence's power. He's a heavy-handed guy, but he's not a true knockout artist, or else there's no way Mikey Garcia could have held up to the 12 rounds of punishment he did. But thank you for the super chat, Scotland Sensei. I got a few others I got to get to. DC Dre said, Bud's face can't swell up like it did against Kell Brook. Yeah. Oh, man, you make a good point, DC Dre, because Errol Spence, he leaves wear and tear on the facial tissue of his opponents. No doubt about it. Sean T says, I believe that Derek James will have the perfect plan to beat Crawford. Thank you, Sean T. Thank you, everyone in the chat, because for as long and as exhaustive as those notes were, I'm leaving out certain things that you guys are picking up the slack for, like Sean T bringing up Derek James. That's an advantage for Spence. He has the better trainer. I like Bomac. Bomac did great work with Jamel Herring. Jamel Herring had 2 losses and was going nowhere fast. And the guy he beat, Kazuto Ito, or not, I'm thinking Kazuto Ioka. Ito, I-T-O, the fighter that Herring beat for the 130-pound strap, he probably wouldn't have beat him without Bomac. So Bomac's a good trainer, and he's got, he's an excellent trainer. He did great with Rob Brandt. Rob Brandt, he got blown out with Janabek with Bomac in the corner, but Rob Brandt had no business becoming world champion, and he did under Bomac. He beat Ryoto Murata, got knocked out in the rematch. So Bomac's a hell of a trainer, but Derek James is one of the best, maybe the best right now. He's got Frank Martin, he's got Anthony Joshua, Ryan Garcia, Jamel Charlo, and Errol Spence. That's an advantage, Spence. So appreciate that, Sean T. Scotland Sensei, thank you, man. Says, my brother, I see your point. No, I appreciate it, Scotland, for hearing me out on what I'm thinking too. So, see a lot of caps. Caesar T is not feeling the Bomac praise on that one. So, let me see. Did I have any other notes to finish up with? And we'll go check punch stats like we said we would. Hold on here. Spence is out throwing them 2, sometimes 3-1 in punch stats. Let's go ahead and bring that up. Well, let's go ahead and compare. Spence Porter to Ugas, or excuse me, Porter Crawford to Spence Ugas. Let's go ahead and compare those two right there. There we go. Porter, Crawford, CompuBox, and Spence Ugas, CompuBox. So, I was surprised at how low the punch output was in Crawford and Porter's fight. Crawford finished throwing 330 punches in a 10-round fight. 330, so about 33 punches a round. Sean Porter, usually very active. Now again, Sean Porter could throw 70, 80 punches around too, but he basically threw the same amount at 347. And that's because of the counter-punching of Terence Crawford. So I don't expect Errol Spence to quite get off like he normally does. I mean, he's against the kind of style that slows that down, but just look at these fucking numbers. 110 punches thrown in round 8. He threw a third of the amount of punches Crawford did in one round. 97 punches, 79, 72, 87, 94, 60, 53, and 59 being the low. His low, 53, 59, is higher than Crawford's highest output. Again, by a significant margin. The highest amount of punches he threw was 41 punches in the 9th round against Sean. That's 12 punches less than Spence's slowest round. That's a potential issue for Terence Crawford, man. Because like I said, he's got that great brain, but when the nervous system is also screaming, ow, ouch, ouch, that body shot, ouch, that jab, ouch, that body shot, ouch, 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 will he be able to think and process and find openings in the exchanges as well as he normally is when he's potentially getting hit in a way he never has been before? That brings me back to the part in my notes, which was Spence is out throwing him 2, sometimes 3-1. And hold on, let me shift down a little bit so you can see it. And so ultimately, my final note, what that leads to in this fight is more counterpunch opportunities for Crawford, but he's going to get pushed to his limits in terms of the punishment he could withstand, the pace at 35 years old, the pace he can set. He's going to get pushed to his absolute limits against Errol Spence. But thankfully for him, it's up against the kind of style he wants to go up against, a guy who wants to fight. That'll give him his counterpunching opportunities. Add it all up, and on paper, forget the pun intended fight hype, the fight science, the logic behind it, and it should be a fight that delivers expectations. So that is my conclusion for now on all my notes, everything we were looking at. I give the edge to Crawford 55-45 right now, but it's just the edge. It's not a final fight pick. I got to see these guys train in person and keep an open mind. I could see both guys train in person, and Spence just looks like the better fighter, and I got to pick Spence. You know, we got a little over 2 months away from July 29th here in Vegas. I'll be there, and we just got to see what happens, man. We got to see how they look from here and there. There could be stories that come out, sparring partners divulging, like just like the Ryan Garcia Gervonta Davis fight. We could find out Crawford got hurt in sparring, Spence got hurt in sparring, got dropped, something like that. So there's a lot that we're going to have to sink our teeth into from now to July 29th, so fight night. But for our first live of many for this fight, I'll give the edge to Terence Crawford because of the counterpunching ability, because of just essentially that. Essentially his ability in exchanges to punch in between punches and find the openings with deceptive power and speed and power shots. And I could see this fight. My first thoughts on this fight is Spence is going to get off to a great start, and the fight will kind of change on a dime in rounds 5 or 6. So somewhere in the middle of the fight, once Crawford really starts to look like Crawford. He's an old car. Old cars take some time to get warmed up. Spence is going to take advantage of that. He's going to be on him with no fear and respect. And Crawford will earn some of that respect with his counters and his power, but I could see the fight changing on a dime halfway through because of Crawford's ability to adjust and be more versatile. And Spence, again, I don't usually see him adjust. His adjustment is just to turn it up a notch. He's starting to hit with a few shots, so I'm going to hit him even more. And I don't know if that adjustment's going to get the job done for Spence this time, because that's just going to allow Crawford to counter more. We'll see if Crawford can hold up to the work rate and the strength and everything. But basically, yeah, I give the edge to Crawford to find the counters in the exchanges in the second half of the fight. And I think he's got to win by knockout. I don't think he's going to get a decision in a very, very close fight. He might. I don't think he would. Not just because Spence is the younger fighter who draws more money and is on the platform that's been supporting him for his whole career, but because of the style he fights, the kind of punch output he produces makes it hard, even if you're landing sharp counters, to offset the sheer number of punches thrown and landed by Spence. So I think Crawford's going to have to win by knockout if he wins this fight. It'll come late. It'll come with him potentially trailing in the by a significant margin in the first half of the fight. But that's how I see. That's my early prognostication on it, man. I got another super chat I got to get to here. Malcolm Emanuel, great to see you, man. Malcolm Emanuel always supporting in the chat, and he says, best journalist in the world. Appreciate the work. Age and Mean Machine's success in the first half of Crawford's fight has me leaning towards Spence. Yeah, and I hear you. I hear you, Malcolm Emanuel. Part of me picking Crawford is kind of sticking to my guns. When this fight was first thought up by us fans, in 2017 is when we really started to beat the drum. Errol Spence beat Kell Brook. Terence Crawford beat Jeff Horn. They had the IBF and the WBO titles. We all knew then they were the two best welterweights in the world, but we had to go through the charade and the business and had to build it up, and now it's built up. We had to go through the Dragon Ball Z saga, although Spence Porter was like Android 17 versus Piccolo. That was a hot one. That was a banger of a pre-fight before the main fight. I mean, Dragon Ball Z fans in there, you got to be loving the references. The ones that don't got to be cringing right now. But here we are, and I think it'll deliver. But I'm with you. I'm with you, Malcolm Emmanuel. My head tells me Crawford, and my gut kind of tells me Spence. That the timing of this fight is a little bit more on his side, and he'll win the fight. You know, he'll win the decision because Crawford won't be able to knock him out, and he won't be able to keep up with the pace punch for punch. So I think Crawford kind of has to win this fight by knockout. I mean, it's not, he could win a decision. That's plausible, but I think he's got to find the knockout late, like he's been doing. Like he's knocked out, I think, 10 straight fighters since Victor Postal. So no one's went the distance with Terence Crawford since 2016. I mean, we've had 2 new presidents since the last time someone actually made Terence Crawford hear the final bell and have to await scorecards. So I think he can do that. I think he can make it 11 in a row, but this is by far going to be the toughest guy to do it against. And again, Spence comes on strong late too. He's not just a front runner. He doesn't just come out the gate strong. He finishes strong. So when Crawford turns it up in the second half, he'll be met with a guy who likes to turn it up in the second half as well. It's going to be very difficult for Crawford to get that knockout late in this fight, but I think he's capable of it still at 35, just barely. Just like Kobe Bryant in 2010, Michael Jordan in 98. He's just barely still got it in his prime to win this fight and pull this off. But we'll see, man. Malcolm Emmanuel, I'm with you. Part of my gut tells me it's going to go Spence's way. The timing benefits him a little bit here. So we'll see, man. We'll see. Anything else, chat, you guys want to talk about before I get out of here? I could play some Undisputed. We could finish with some Terence Crawford on Undisputed on the video game, but yeah, anything else you guys want to know? Tony Brooks says, I need answers. Why has this man got a carpet sample from your local carpet store on his head? If anybody could help Tony Brooks with his question, Tony, we're keeping it 2001. Dude, where's my car? Ashton Kutcher. That's the best answer I got for you, Tony. Winner fights Rolly Romero, KNF movie. I think they'll have bigger aspirations than that. I think Errol Spence will be looking Canelo's way if he can beat Crawford. Crisco713 TV says, what do I think about the winner fighting Jermell Charlo? I think it's more likely that Crawford would want to fight Charlo than Spence, and I think Spence would look towards Canelo, would look towards the money if he beats Crawford. Of course, they both have a rematch clause, but I think Spence would look towards Canelo, and I think Crawford's the guy who would fight Charlo, not Spence. They share a trainer. Derek James would have to spend 28 seconds in one corner and 28 seconds in the other corner. So, Kavion Edwards, great point. Kavion Edwards said Spence fights thank you for the super chat, Kavion Edwards. Kavion Edwards said Errol Spence fights everybody differently. Crawford also had the trouble with the jab in the Brook fight. He did, big time. Brook was out jabbing Crawford, and what happened there, Kavion, they both started from the orthodox stance, and Crawford's jab looked good in the orthodox stance in that fight, but he was getting out jabbed by Kell Brook. And then Crawford switched southpaw, like he always does. In rounds 2 or 3, he switches southpaw. Now he's got that different angle against the orthodox guy, and he took that angle against Brook, hit him with the right hand he didn't see coming, and won by knockout against a very faded, punch resistance-wise, Kell Brook. Kell still looked sharp, like his offense was fine, but he just couldn't take a punch anymore. But like you said, Brook was out jabbing Crawford. And what Crawford did to remedy that was switch southpaw, take the angle away. Now he can't get the jab off the same way. Problem is, like Nonito Donaire was talking about, now he's fighting another southpaw. So when he tries to make that southpaw switch, it's not going to have the angle. It's not going to have the blindside angle that it does against the orthodox. He's going to have to still deal with that jab from Spence, and Spence's jab is better than his. Oh God, I lost my train of thought there for a second. Yeah, just that simple. He's not going to be able to to do that with Spence, and Spence has the better jab. Forgot something there for a moment, but maybe I'll get back to it. A couple more super chats to go to, man. The Body Tape Don, thank you for the super chat, said, what's interesting about this fight is whether or not Crawford chooses to primarily fight southpaw. He's mainly fighting orthodox fighters. Thank you. You helped me with what I was forgetting, which was back to Kavion, which is when he switches southpaw. The problem is, I said what he did to remedy Kell Brook out jabbing him was switch southpaw, take the jab away that way, right? And he can't do that against Spence, right? And the problem is if he tries to do, vice versa, I'm going to go orthodox to take away Spence's jab. You don't box nearly as many rounds in your pro fights as an orthodox fighter as you do as a southpaw. How can we reasonably expect you to be as sharp all around as a righty as you are as a lefty when you haven't boxed as many rounds doing that? So I don't know, to then go back to the Body Tape Don's point, which is, will he choose to fight righty or southpaw? If he does choose to fight righty, he might be getting hit more. Fighters will tell you when they switch, it's not so much the offense they can't get groovy with, it's the defense. And I knew that from my little amateur career. When I would switch southpaw, I could throw some nasty right hooks and but when it came time, and I could throw a sharp jab because it's my power hand. I could throw a sharp jab, but when it came time to get out of the way of shots, it was just, you're more clunky, and it's just tougher. It's just tougher. That's where the rust of not fighting as many rounds in a different stance really shows up, is defensively. So Body Taped on, Kavion, we'll see. And then back to my man David Williams. Thank you, brother, for the super chat. Too kind. David Williams says, let's be honest. Porter wasn't the same fighter as when he fought Errol Spence, when he fought Crawford. You are correct. You are correct, David Williams. And as you guys know, I know Sean, not just, as a person, but I know him as a fighter extremely well because I've seen the man spar countless rounds, have countless training camps out here in Vegas. And I can confirm, David, that Errol Spence fought a better Sean Porter than Terence Crawford did. Terence Crawford fought a Sean Porter with 1 foot out, who was already 1 foot out the door, who knew he was retiring after that fight. Sean had a much better camp against Errol Spence than he did Terence Crawford. Point blank, period. Sean Porter wasn't the physical tank. Getting down to 147 pounds his entire professional career, he wasn't quite as strong against Terence Crawford as he was the tank against Errol Spence, and certainly the tank that fought Keith Thurman. That Sean was really strong physically for that fight. However, David, one thing I give Crawford credit for, he didn't fight the best Sean Porter, but he did fight the smartest Sean Porter. And I think he kind of fought the most defensively sound Sean Porter. Go back and watch that fight, David. Well, you probably don't need to. You probably remember it by heart. But Sean's head movement before he fatigued was... and he fatigued much quicker against Crawford than he did. Well, not much quicker, but he fatigued quicker against Crawford than he did Spence because he didn't train as hard. But his mental, his IQ was at its highest for Crawford. Now, his body wasn't there the way it was for Spence. Spence still fought a better version of Sean because he fought a Sean that had a lot of experience, was very smart, but still had his physical strength and all his fighting spirit. He wasn't thinking about retirement just yet. But Crawford did fight a smarter Sean Porter, and before Sean got fatigued in rounds 7 and 8 and 9, he fought the best defensive Sean Porter, I thought. So just to keep it fair, thank you for the super chat, though, brother. Hold on, I got a couple other. Did we miss here? I feel like 2 other super chats. Shannon, thank you, man. Shannon says, Bud Crawford's legs have slowed down. Factor in Errol Spence's body work. That isn't a good combination. You bring up a great point, Shannon. That's not a great combination. A guy who kills your body, killing the body kills your legs, against a guy whose legs aren't what they were, that could be a bad combo there. Shannon says it could be a long fight for Bud, but his talent is undeniable. The fight is too close to call. I essentially agree. I got it 55-45 Crawford right now. But you make a great point. Thank you, Shannon. And Matt's Adventures, one of our regulars, Matt's Adventures is always supporting us here on Fight Hype Live. Hits us with the super chat. Matt's Adventures says, I'm glad they made it, but it feels a year too late. My excitement is just less than it was. I bet it hurts the pay-per-view numbers. I choose Terence Crawford by knockout. You know what's funny? You would think... Get back in focus. There we go. You would think that it could hurt pay-per-view numbers, the long, the drawn-outness of it. Now people can whisper, is Crawford at 35? Is he really? Or not even whisper. They just say, is Crawford at 35 really what he was? And are we really getting them at their best? I don't think we're getting them at their absolute peak. I think Spence's peak was like around the Lamont Peterson fight before the accident. I think Crawford's peak was Jeff Horn. But they're still in their prime. They're not faded. They're not past it. They're still in their prime. And stylistically, them being in the later stages of their prime probably leads to a more action fight, because younger legs, especially for Crawford, could have made it a little bit more of a chess match, a boxing match, and I think we're going to get more of a fight, especially in the second half of that fight. So I'm still excited for it. And in terms of the pay-per-view numbers, critically, the hardcore fan, people who love boxing like me and you, we're like, the Mayweather Pacquiao thing, it should have happened here and there. But ultimately, their pay-per-view numbers actually benefited from playing it out and prolonging it, and this could very well have the same effect. That actually the pay-per-view numbers are stronger than ever because of all the build-up and just playing it out all the way to the nth degree. The pay-per-view numbers might actually do really well. And you got people like Shannon Sharp on Skip and Shannon talking about the fight. And Fox doesn't... it'd be one thing if Fox had the pay-per-view, and it's like, well, of course Skip and Shannon are talking about it. It's not because boxing's reaching any mainstream status with this fight. It's because the fight's on fucking Fox. No, the fight's on Showtime, and Skip and Shannon are still talking about it. They didn't talk about Haney Lomachenko. They didn't talk about Benavidez Plant, but they talked about Ryan and Tank because that fight had crossover appeal, and so does Crawford Spence, And I'll say it, particularly in the black community. The black community is going to get behind this fight. Just like the Mexican community gets behind Canelo Alvarez's fights, the black community in America is going to support both of these guys, and it's going to do strong pay-per-view numbers because of that, America at large, I hope, supports this fight. Hopefully white people buy the fight. They will. Boxing fans, we know boxing fans of all races are going to buy this fight. But, just like we give credit to the Mexican fans for how they support and they make Canelo's, revenue strong, I think the black fans are going to do that. The black American fans are going to do that for Spence and Crawford. It's going to be an event. And, I can't wait to cover it, man. It's going to be great. So... someone that night is gonna. Let me see. Do I got any great welterweights in here? What do I got? Do I got a Sugar Ray Leonard in here? And I got, Morales and Barrera were featherweights. Winky Wright was a 154. Yeah, Pacquiao and Cotto fought at welterweight. When I think Pacquiao, I think of a great pound for pound fighter, not really a great welterweight. Cotto's in the hall of very, very good at welterweight, not a great welterweight. We got any great welterweights in this room? We got Mayweather and Mosley, but they're off frame. They're great welterweights. Anyway, my point is, the winner, all human beings, says D Shuffle. Yes, all human beings, absolutely. But the winner of this fight is gonna get to. If there's a table here, and sitting at the tables, Oscar De La Hoya, Sugar Ray Robinson, Sugar Ray Leonard, shit, man. Thomas Hearns. Some other. Let me not forget some of them boys in the '80s. Even a Marlon Starling, Donald Curry, some great welterweights in the '80s that got forgotten in between the De La Hoya era and the Leonard era. They're all sitting there. The winner of this fight, Floyd Mayweather, definitely an all-time great welterweight. The winner of this fight can pull up and sit with all of them. The winner of this fight. Welterweight's one of the greatest divisions in boxing's history, and the winner of this fight gets to be an all-time great welterweight, gets to be a part of that pantheon of great welterweight champions. So that's a lot on the line, legacy-wise, for this one. For Crawford, he's probably already headed to the Hall of Fame because he was undisputed at 140. He was lineal at 135, and he's won his belt at 147. He probably will get in already. But for Spence... Hall of Fame is on the line in this fight. He doesn't have the 3 divisions like Crawford. He hasn't been undisputed in a previous weight class. He's only ever been a welterweight, and at welterweight, he's definitely got a better legacy than Crawford, but Crawford has a better legacy than him overall. So Spence needs to win this fight to become an all-time great welterweight. He needs to win this fight to become to cement himself as a Hall of Famer, and Crawford needs to win this fight to cement himself as a pound-for-pound great. For Spence, it's a win would solidify him as a welterweight great. For Crawford, more as a pound-for-pound great, a guy who moved from lightweight to welterweight and was the best fighter in all 3 divisions. So, plenty on the line for both guys right here. If anybody wants, if anyone got any other questions, fire them my way, man. Crisco said you have the best in the department of knowledge of boxing on YouTube. I appreciate that, man. I got to come correct, or else I'm wasting your guys' time. That's genuinely how I feel. It's not enough to just make a fight pick. I want to be right. I want you guys to not feel like you wasted your time, and I felt like we did that for Benavidez Plant, for Ryan and Tank, for Haney and Lomachenko. I picked all 3 of those fights correctly. They've played out fairly similar, especially Ryan and Tank. That was on the money. Benavidez and Plant surprised me in those first 5 rounds, and David disappointed me not being able to match Caleb's jab early in that fight, but ultimately he took over like we thought he would. Haney, I picked by decision to win. I always thought he beat Lomachenko. He did. As it turns out, I had the fight scored a draw. If anything, I gave the edge to Loma, but I called it. He was right. So, we'll in the end, we'll probably be right about this too. But let's take our time. Let's assess everything. Let's see these guys work out up close in camp for this fight. Let's see the weigh-in, and then we'll make a last minute pick there. I just got a great chat. What do you think? I just got a great message from my editor. Editor says, we got 750 people in here. A lot of you guys missed the Errol Spence notes because we were live for about 15 minutes and it cut out and we had to restart. So you know what? Before we play a little Undisputed with Terence Crawford to close the show, let's go back to some of those Errol Spence notes that you guys who only came in for this second live may have missed, and we'll do it right here. We'll go over Errol one more time, a little quicker than we did last time because some of you guys probably heard it already. But again, because we closed with Crawford there, but Spence has the better jab. He's the faster starter. He's sharper up the middle to start. And as much as Crawford talks about, he told Andre Ward after he knocked out Kell Brook, he flexes in the bubble and he tells Andre Ward, "They don't know how strong I am, Dre." And I agree. You could tell his strength in that ring is different than it looks to the naked eye. But still, watching my tape on my 65-inch OLED, Spence looks like the bigger, stronger welterweight. He just does. He's fatter on his shots than Crawford, outside of the 1-2. The 1-2 isn't fat. It's sharp and down the pipe. But the hooks, the uppercuts, Spence is fatter and slower on his shots than Crawford. Is Crawford more compact and faster hand speed on those shots? And that should give him the edge in the exchanges if he can hold up to the heat. You can tell Spence is the younger man despite the accident. I've been around both guys, and Crawford feels closer to being that middle-aged man than Spence. When I'm around Spence, he still gives me that young man energy, closer to his 20s than Crawford. He's got the heavy-handed clubbing power. Crawford's got the snappy power. He's got the deceptive snap speed on the end of the shot, snapping power. He's got more closer to the Mike Tyson speed and power, explosive snap power. Spence got more of the George Foreman, Texas country strong, club you into submission over and over again. Damn, there's some light punches. Let me put some more weight on. The more clubbing, heavy-handed power. Two different types of power. Spence's head usually returns to the center for the counter. That's what happened against Ugas when he got hurt and when he got touched in the 6th and 7th round. He'll throw them shots, and then his head comes back to the center for the counter. It's there for the counter. He can slide off and be tall. He uses his shoulder roll there, and too, especially in the Mikey Garcia fight where he was much longer than Mikey. That's going to be tougher to do against Crawford, who's got longer arms than him, but it's not 100% of the fight he's fighting out of the high guard, Spence, with that fundamentally sound, tight high guard. he'll slide, he'll pivot off with the shoulder roll here and there. He'll do it here and there. It's not a huge part, but he can do it, especially in that Mikey fight. One of the most consistent body punchers in boxing, maybe the most consistent body puncher in boxing, and he places them underneath the elbow, and consistent, relentless, round after round, he's touching that body. And fundamentally sound, man, one of the most fundamentally sound fighters in the sport. My little boy Leonardo, if Leo was a couple years older, the guys I'd have my son study, the guys that you should have young fighters study are fighters with the best fundamentals. So I would have my son, for example, study Winky Wright, Errol Spence, and Triple G, because they all have great jabs, and for the most part, they're working right here. They're working right here. That's the first fundamental defense, is catch and catch. Catch off the high guard. All this other stuff, the upper body movement and the slipping off the side, and that takes sauce and athleticism and a certain level of talent and coordination to pull off. But just about anybody with great fundamentals can pull off high guard, great jab out of the high guard to set things up. And that's Errol Spence, one of the most fundamentally sound fighters you will ever see. And again, he just appears to have the strength and size advantage, you know. Just period, man. He looked big. He got back to looking like a tank against Ugas. Against Danny Garcia and Sean Porter, he looked slimmer to me. His legs didn't look as strong to me ringside at the Sean Porter fight. I was ringside. I called the Ugas fight with Sean here on FightHype Live. And I was saying during that round by round with Sean, man, this looks like vintage Spence. Spence, once he really caught fire in rounds like 3 and 4 and 5, he started to look like 2017, 2018 Spence again. And that bodes well for him heading into this fight, because you know, you don't know if you're going to get a little bit of a weight drain, Spence, because he's 32. He's been at one weight class his whole life. Crawford's got to move up 12 pounds. He's got to grow as his body's grown. Spence hasn't. But he looked very, very strong at welterweight against Ugas. Looked like he rehydrated into tank mode again. So he should be all right. He's back on the secret sauce. That's fucked up. So, yeah. But chat... Jose Rodriguez said this is pointless. Crawford is winning. Class dismissed. Yeah, we're bringing the nutritionist back, says JR. Yeah, that's what it is I think he's talked about his strength and condition. Because remember, before the Sean Porter fight, he's like, we get it from the mud. No strength and conditioning. And then he said, yeah, I did a little strength and conditioning. But his point was, I don't got the coach Larry Wade like Sean Porter. I'm just doing old school, right? And now, before the Ugas fight, he said he watched his diet, he brought the strength and conditioning coach, and his frame looked back to Lamont Peterson type of level, an Ocampo kind of level, back to that strong welterweight Errol Spence that he'll need to be to beat Terence Crawford. So, and he looks bigger and stronger than Crawford. So, guys, do we call it a wrap, and do we move on to some Undisputed? Do I get into this? Do I close the show with some Bud Crawford on Undisputed? Decal03 says, thank you for the super chat, Decal. Says, I see this fight going the same as Benavidez versus Plant. Decal, what do you mean? Because it's just two different... Who do you see being Plant getting off to the good start, and who do you see being Benavidez coming on, pounding the other guy in the second half of the fight? Because stylistically, Benavidez is more like Spence. You know, go and get you behind a jab, combinations, beat you up. What am I hearing about the undercard? Says R. Jonesy. Thank you for the super chat. I don't know. I'm assuming... I'm thinking you got to put Jaron Ennis on that card. You have to. You have to fucking put Jaron Ennis on that card. Or at the very least, he's fighting as the main event a week later. Or something like that, you know. But I think you got to put Jaron Ennis on this card, man. He's the guy everybody who loves boxing knows is the toughest threat to either Crawford or Spence. Virgil Ortiz too, but he fights on the same platform. He's a Showtime fighter. If they got to put Jaron Ennis either as the co-main event or at the very least as the main event the week after when Showtime replays the fight. They got to do that. So that's what I'm... Frank Martin, Chazak, great name you threw out there. Frank Martin would be a fantastic name on this undercard. I think in a dream scenario, we get Frank Martin and we get Boots Ennis on this card. And those fighters might have to accept a little bit less money than they want to because the main event fighters are going to eat so much of the lion's share of the card. And undercard fights don't really affect pay-per-view sales, so if the guy's not going to take the money, someone else will, and the pay-per-view sales will be the same. So Boots Ennis and Frank Martin are going to have to look at this as an exposure opportunity more than as a payday potentially, and they'll have to say, look, every boxing fan in the world is watching this card, and then some, and then all these hundreds of thousands of casuals are tuning in too. The main event, if you're Boots at least, is the two guys you want to fight. So even if you got to take a little less money than you really want to, I don't think you could pass up this opportunity. They got especially Ennis. Martin, him too, but especially Ennis has to find himself in front of this audience on July 29th. So I'm hoping Ennis is on the undercard. Frank Martin would be nice. And Gary Antoine Russell says Macho Man. That'd be fantastic too. He's a great young 140. Well, not great. We don't want to throw around the word great. He's a hell of a young 140 pounder. But Ennis has to have something to do with that fight. He does. Marvelous Irv, good to see you in the chat, brother. Good to see you, man. What about David Morrell? Yeah, Morrell fought on that Ryan and Tank undercard. He could always go back on there. Would love to see him. But Morrell might wind up fighting David Benavidez in a main event himself. So he'll have his slate full. D-Tech, you give a great suggestion. Says D-Tech says, Sean, Keith one-time Thurman as the co-main event. His style's exciting. It can be against the right opponent. If you don't press Keith Thurman these days, he's going to coast and pick his shots and do his thing. For Thurman to be exciting, it's got to be up against a guy who's trying to press him, But I'm down to see Keith Thurman as the co-main event. Down for that too. But you want to talk about taking less money than, you really want to make. That would be Keith. Keith has touched, close to $10 million paydays fighting Pacquiao. That's part of why Keith is so inactive, is he only wants to fight for his quota. Whatever that is, probably $2 million, if not more. But it's like, Keith, you can fight on the biggest card of the year, but you have to understand your role is just an undercard, and you got to accept this 200, 300, 400, 500,000, 600, 700. You got to take that if you want the opportunity to get that exposure in front of all these people. I don't see Keith doing that. I think Ennis, having not touched the kind of money Keith has, he'd be more willing to do it. And he's the guy I want to see in that co-main event slot more than Thurman too. Thurman is still a threat, I guess, but he hasn't. I mean, come on, man. He fights Mario Barrios and hasn't fought since February of last year. I like Keith, but it's like, you're old news. Ennis is the guy who deserves the shine and the spotlight in that position. Now he's the guy that we want to see get that shot now. Keith had his time, and he's still around, and, still could be a threat. But nah, let that spot go to Jaron Ennis, Keith didn't get no 10 mil, stop it. I said close to 10 mil. And he probably did. That fight did over 400,000 on pay-per-view. He probably made a fat payday. I'm pretty sure he did. Boots versus Barrios. Well, Barrios has a fight slated for Ugas. Maybe that's the fight. Maybe they do Barrios and Ugas on that card as a co-main. I want Ennis to get that slot. But Barrios and Ugas would be a good fight. Barrios, I think, is going to win that fight. I think Spence probably took his pound of flesh out of Ugas. Ugas will have not fought for over a year. Barrios is strong at welterweight. He's not weight trained at 140 anymore. He's growing in confidence after the experience of going 12 with Thurman and then, losing the Tank. And I think Barrios is going to beat Ugas. Stagger Lee Goods, thank you for the super chat, brother. Stagger Lee Goods says, Bud and Spence, these guys are older, yet well-preserved. Neither guy has had tough fights. They only fight once a year or less. It's a shame. No, you're right. And that's what I mean. That's why I don't think Crawford's at his peak. I think Crawford's peak was the Jeff Horn fight. I think that's the best Crawford we ever saw. And I think Spence's peak was like the Lamont Peterson era, Ocampo, his first couple title defenses after beating Kell Brook. So, but like you said, they haven't been in a bunch of wars. Spence had that car accident. That kind of equalizes Crawford being a few years older. But they still look like they're in their prime. They still look like two of the best fighters pound for pound. So, you know, all is not lost despite this long. I think the fight will deliver. You know, Jim Lampley and them, the OGs, they used to talk about. Remember, Jim Lampley used to say this, but he was just echoing what all the great old trainers and the great minds in boxing would say, which is sometimes you get a better fight not when guys are past it, not when guys are shot, not when guys are faded, but sometimes you get a better fight between two elite fighters when they slow down, when their reflexes and things like that slow down just a little bit to where they're both getting hit more. And a lot of the old timers explained that's why the Thrill in Manila was even more brutal than the first fight between Ali and Frazier, because Ali didn't have his legs like he did early in the first Frazier fight. They both got hit even more than they did. And so, yeah, that's something all the great, you know, old timers in boxing used to talk about. Not when they're faded, not when they're past it or shot, but when both guys have slowed down just a little with their reflexes and they're getting hit just a little bit more. That's sometimes when you really get the great fight. And I'm hopeful that's the case here. Let me see here. Trevor Davis, thank you for the super chat. Man, we're back up to 750. We were going weak for a minute. We were dropping to 600. Now we're back up to 750. Trevor Davis says, I think you'll see the best version of both fighters. I think if Bud is patient but assertive, he wins. He has to hit Errol, so Errol will not try and walk through him. Right. His counterpunching is going to have to be his defense. If you try to play... Offense is your defense sometimes. 100% in boxing. If you waste all your energy trying to get out of the way of punches, you're going to burn yourself out. And sometimes a guy like Spence, you make him miss the first and second and third shot, he's still throwing the fourth and the fifth and the sixth one anyways. And he knows how to, okay, you're moving away from the jab, you're moving away from the straight left hand, you're moving away from the hook. There you are for the left uppercut, because I knew there's only so many ways you could move that head out of the way. And a smart combination puncher like Spence knows the next shot to throw where the guy will be. So even if you make a miss 1, 2, and 3, you can get hit by 4 and 5. That happened in Haney Loma a couple times. Haney, when Loma would have his little burst, his spurts of combinations, he would miss 1, 2, and 3, but land 4 and 5, because, you know, what I'm talking about there. So I'm with you, Trevor Davis. Crawford's counterpunching has to be what slows Spence down. And I think he can and he will, you know. So I'm 100 said Spence's jab is really good and stiff. Pause. You know what? About the pause thing, man. I'm from before the pause era. It kind of reminds me of when Stone Cold started doing what? And it's like, I get it, but goddamn, this is kind of annoying. Can we get through a sentence without you saying what? Can we get through a sentence without the kids saying pause? I ran into my man Shakur Stevenson. You guys saw the video, you know, and I go, I should have worded it better. But I said, Shakur, you're here at the fight. Are you on the winner's ass? And he's like, pause. And I'm like, this pause shit. And I'm like, you know what I mean. And then I tell him, are you on the winner's bumper? Pause. And I'm like, God damn. And it was funny. And I talked to Shakur about it later that night, and we were laughing about it. So, but part of me is like, pause yourself. You should be able, as a grown man, to allow me to get through certain sentences without thinking the gay shit in your head. You know, who's really the one who deserves a pause? You know, like if I can't get through a sentence without saying ass or certain words, stiff, long, and you just think of dick right away, that's on you, man. I'm talking about boxing. I don't know why that got in your head. Anyways, that's just a funny way I like to flip the whole pause culture. But anyways, you have to pause certain things. 40, like, I get it. I mean, I get it. But there was a time and place where you would say, yeah, he's you know, like he just said, he got that long, stiff jab, and you wouldn't think of dick. You'd understand it's a male adult talking about the sport of boxing and the jab. Anyways, that's how we go. That's how we go. Yeah, it was no homo before that. It was no homo before that. Now, anyway, chat. Anything else we want to talk about? The old heads that get what I'm getting at, they get it. The people who disagree, they disagree. It's not that serious a discussion. It's not that serious. Say pause if you feel. I laugh sometimes when people do it. But do we? So chat. Do we call it a wrap on the real life boxing talk, or do we get in a little bit of work on this Undisputed now? What do we think, chat? And hit the like button if you haven't already, please. All that counterpunching come with no power, says JR. That's not true. Errol, no one has seen the final bell with Terence. You talk about caliber of opposition, whatever. It included Sean Porter, who Errol Spence did not stop. Sean had 1 foot out the door against Spence. He did not. I get that. But no one's seen the final bell with Terence Crawford since Barack Obama was president. We've had 2 fucking presidents since this man has had to hear Jimmy Lennon, Michael Buffer, or any other motherfucker scorecards. So he's not countering with no power. That's false. Move on, fam. Yeah, all right. I'll take your advice, Whiskey. We'll wrap up with little Terence Bud Crawford on Undisputed. Let's do that. Hold on. First, let me mute all this British rap that I'm good on. That'll get us copyright. Hold on. Settings. Audio. Hold on. Yeah, music. Turn all the music off, please. Bop, 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 bop. And yeah. Alright, now we can put some audio on there. Boom. Alright, so it's only right. What's the name of the great welter that beat Vernon Forrest twice? Ricardo Mayorga was his name. I mean, Ricardo Mayorga was the welterweight champion. He was a problem for a time there. When he was able to get down to 147, he was a problem. All right, here we go. Terence Crawford. This is how we're going to end it. Spence isn't throwing any fire that Bud can't handle. Well, they're both going to be faced with the biggest punchers either one of them's ever faced. And they both had vulnerable moments against guys that punch, definitely less hard than either one of them.
Here we are getting ready for this showdown between these.
Is this the best year in boxing? It's the best year in a minute.
Next to me, of
it's
course,
the best year in a
Johnny
minute. Oh, we're going Crawford
It's
versus
gonna be
Crawford. I'm the good one.
unbelievable.
I'm the
The
blue corner
fans
Terence Crawford.
Around the world, the fighters. This is.
I've been
just
listening
one
to
of
British
those
drill. I
things.
don't listen to drill,
And now
period.
it's time for the tale
R.
of the
Jonesy,
tape.
I don't
And
listen
here
to
he is
anything
in
after
the
the year
flesh.
2006. I think the
Bud
last
Crawford,
album, or
perhaps the
2007.
pound-for-pound king.
I think the
5'8"
last
inches
album I
tall,
actually
with
liked that I
74
bought
inch
was Pharaoh
reach.
Monch.
And standing
Pharaoh Monch had an album in 07. Ghostface Killer had the Fish Scale album in 06. And Little Brother had the Minstrel Show in 05. Those are like the last 3 albums that I thought were good. Music has went to hell, my friend.
Goes, don't blink. That fight could be over.
And now for the official introduction.
All right, let's go. Mayorga. Yeah, he won that little WBC title against Micheri Pricherio in Chicago. I remember that belt was supposed to go to Fernando Vargas, but Ricardo Mayorga got the 154-pound WBC, and then De La Hoya knocked him out for it. And then that's how Floyd got the WBC at 54, was beating De La Hoya, who beat Mayorga for it.
Here is an acclaimed
Sean, how old are you? I'm 31 years old, brother. I'm 31 years old.
This was the hottest ticket in town by a country.
You clipped the pause, Rant? Oh shit! Pound for pound box
Who's
talk.
gonna walk away with
Just don't share it with the youngins. They'll hate me.
Which fans are gonna be happy? Which fans are gonna be sad?
I don't listen to One Direction, King Fury. I know I look like I listen to One Direction, but as my dad once clowned on them, my dad said, "They're One Direction. Turn around, turn the other way." I was dying when my dad said that. That was a sleeper one-liner. That was that old Brooklyn Rodney Dangerfield one-liners my dad had. All right, let's go. I'm Green Trunks Crawford. All right, chat. Let me focus. Let me focus. Start with the jab. Oh, start with the. To the jab. Oh, step out of range. Step off to the left. Touch his body. Touch his body. Bop, bop, bop.
prevents that left uppercut from
Step
scoring.
out, reset. Boop. Hold up, hold up. Bop, bop, touch, bop, bop,
Good
bop,
counterpunching
bop.
for both these athletes.
Let's go. Making it look pretty. Bop. Miss.
Perhaps the hottest ticket in town for this
It's called
fight
BOX. It's called
Situations
box.
like this, Todd, will either make or break a fight.
Touch to the bottom. Oh, no.
Expectation from
What's
the
up, buddy? You
thousands
quitting?
of people here, of the millions of people
You quitting?
around the world.
Am I living up to the
People
No
like you and I
Mashanko?
sat here,
By the way, that
expecting
nickname,
everything and anything
that was well
from
before Haney
Drake and
Lomas. Not
Mike
because I like
Tyson.
Lomachenko. It's just I always make people quit in this game, so I took the nickname No Mashanko.
Great counter right hand there.
Whoop, whoop,
His jab just
whoop,
got
whoop,
blocked.
whoop, counter. Oh, that's that counter punching from Terence Crawford in the exchanges. But we gotta take our time. We're not gonna go crazy in round one. Let's pick them apart a little bit.
Got out of the way of that right hook.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. Let's get a little counters in the last 20 seconds. Let's stay in range and get some
Step
counters
back
off.
for just a moment.
Come on, give me something to counter. Boom, boom, boom. Yep, boom.
This round could go either way. 10 seconds to go.
Do a little dance on him. One zip, one zip.
And a round that seemed like an eternity for them finally
Y'all
comes
see
to
it.
a close. On to the second round.
You're 30 and you've been saying pause 40 luck. Oh man, I'm just not cool then. That's all. I'm just not. I'm not with it. I'm corny a little bit, a little nerdy. I can't go along with all the fads. I just can't. If I have it my way, sometimes I'll talk like it's 1990s New York. Like, son is illin'. He's illin', God. Just kidding. He's wildin' over
Puncher's
here.
gonna wait for you to move
Son is
first.
wildin'
and then
on me.
strike
Let's go.
like a
Come on.
snake. Keep an eye on this guy.
You're fighting a counter punch.
All right. I'm gonna settle down, chat, and take care of this.
From that. Then react. Then I know it's
Boom!
hard to
Counter
think,
hook.
but
Let's counter now.
They're watching you every move. That every switch.
Let me change stance. Plant my feet a little bit.
Nice shot with the left.
You don't want to give me too much to counter.
Halfway through the round, and man, these two are going at it. He misses with that
Boom!
jab.
There it is. Counter left hook. Counter left hook. Uppercut to the body. Counter uppercut.
Fighter relies a lot on their instincts and reaction time. You've got to get
Counter
quick
uppercut.
to punch your opponent before he gets his fist back to block.
Don't forget my jab a little bit in between all those exchanges. Don't forget the jab.
Boom,
Boom, boom, boom.
If you go to fight, a counter punch is smart.
Counter. Oh, he got me. Oh, he got me with the counter that time. That's all right.
You know
Our
the
round.
scorecards are going to be all over the place in this one.
Oh, okay. Okay. Psych. Two zip, chat.
From this moment forward, he cannot afford to lose.
When am I going southpaw? The game
Sometimes it could
game
be
doesn't let you switch
sound.
southpaw yet. It's the stupidest shit. It doesn't let you switch southpaw online, only offline. Yeah, I planted my feet a little bit there towards the end. Am I from New York? Yeah, originally from Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, but I moved out here when I was 7 with my mom to Vegas, so I'm more of a Vegas guy
Here we
now,
go in round
obviously.
three. Who's going to land the
But
first
yeah,
round
originally
shot?
from Brooklyn.
Well, they got battered last round. How do they turn their fortunes around?
They've had 1 minute to recover. Now they've got to bluff it. They've got to bluff it. They've got to come out now and style it out. Get on the back foot, jab, rest on the jab. Be smart and pop until your legs come back. Then,
Still walk him into
put the
shots.
pressure.
Give him a little bit of more movement than I did last round.
He parries the right jab away. He misses with that jab.
Okay. I'm just trying to make a few adjustments here, not just go toe-to-toe. Pick them apart a little bit.
He just missed with that left jab.
There it is. There it is.
And so far, the offense has been better than the defense.
Oh! Oh! You saw it, chat. Off the jab. To the check hook. We're picking them apart this round.
Watch that jab.
Oh! Boom! Check him into the hook again. Oh! 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 Let's put them together now. Little combo. Oh! Into the hook. We're touching them up now, chat.
He parries away that left hook. Very close round with 10 seconds to go.
Oh! What's coming? What's coming? You know it. You know it. Oh! Check hook coming. Got him. That was the round. That was more like it, chat. That was more styling instead of just winning the round. I want to bring some sauce.
You know what? Next round, you're getting it. You're getting it.
Let's go. Let's go. 40 Lux says, I think Broner needs to be on the undercard. Broner just needs to be there fight week and give me a hilarious interview. Please, please, AB. Because we know Broner can't be on the card because he's with Don King now. He's not with Al Heyman. So we're not going to see, definitely not see any Adrian Broner. But I just hope he's there fight week, man. He will be.
Let's see if we can turn
He
it
will be.
around.
He knows
here.
both guys. He's cool with both guys.
He's going to come out and put the pressure on. He's going to throw the
All right,
kitchen sink.
let's get this KO though, chat. Let's finish this live right.
Fire with fire. Hold him off. Be smart because he's going to try and put you under pressure. He knows
Oh, come on. Give me that check hook down.
Be sharp.
Oh.
Endurance is becoming a factor. You can see this fighter having a hard time getting out of the way of punches, and they're not throwing as many on their own.
Midway through the fight, if you are tired, this can be the loneliest place in the world. If you cheated...
Who's he throwing at? Who's he throwing at? Oh. Who are you throwing at, bro? Come on. Whoop.
Through the hook, didn't win. Good fight so far, both of these fighters.
Oh, I heard him off that one, chat. Clip it. Let's go. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. This is FightHype Live. We don't lose on FightHype Live. It's Spence Crawford. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. To the winner's camp.
After another knockout win here.
A knockout victory. That is God.
Let's do it,
You see the
chat.
shot? That's not a knockout. That's an assassination. What a shot.
Feel free to clip that. Let's go, chat. 28 counter punches for Terence Crawford. And that's how we do it. That's how we do it, chat. We'll call it a day on some Undisputed. We want to leave on that high note. Quit while we're ahead. Man, we did our thing in those last 2 rounds, chat. We did our thing. We did our thing. All right, man. That's all I got for us today. Thought we'd close with some Terence Crawford Undisputed. Fittingly, getting some counter shots in, getting the knockout. Anything else you guys want? I know. I'm sorry, Dingy. It's a little annoying. Especially for you guys that had your headphones in. I'm sorry I did that. But guys, anything else you want to touch on before I get up out of here and everyone enjoy the rest of their Wednesday? Just let me know. Let me know. Otherwise, that was a pretty good high note to leave on. Let me see here. Those one-punch KOs can hurt Spence. Don't be fooled, but I do think Spence wins, says Tyrese Maxey. Blessed to Fish said, Bud Crawford doesn't do doghouse style sparring. Do your research on both fighters and take your feelings out of it. Well, I've done just that. Trust me, I have. I'm good. I'm not emotionally attached to Errol or Terence. I just like watching them both fight, and may the best man win. Won't be heartbroken if either one loses by knockout. I actually want to see that. I want to see a fight end by knockout. But I had blessed to fish. We didn't talk about doghouse sparring at all in the video. I don't know where you got it from, my bud. Sonia Dumas, good to see you towards the A. I'm happy I got to see you, Sonia, before you got up out of here. Keep having fun with Leonard Ellerby on Twitter. You guys go back and forth pretty good. Give it to each other pretty good. Good to see you, Sonia. Fire in My Bones says chances that we see a trilogy between Spence and Bud. Solid chance. Not a bad chance at all because it's a bi-conditional rematch clause in the fight. So whoever loses has 30 days, I believe, according to reports, to activate their rematch clause. So that's a very legit scenario that this becomes a trilogy, particularly when there aren't a lot of stars around the division that make for pay-per-view fights. You know, I get it if you want to get this one done and then get to the next big pay-per-view fight at welterweight, but that doesn't exist, really. Even at 54, a fight with Jermell Charlo isn't a bigger pay-per-view fight than Crawford and Spence fighting each other. So if it's a very competitive first fight, whoever loses already has the rematch clause in their favor. They can activate it, and if that person turns the tables, then it'll have been 1-1, and a trilogy would probably be pretty easy to make at that point and would make sense money-wise. That's the best-case scenario. The best-case scenario is that this fight is so good that it warrants a rematch, and then even better than that, it warrants 3 fights. I wouldn't hold my breath for it, but I definitely think we're going to see this twice. I wouldn't hold my breath for a trilogy. You can never guess those kinds of things. It has all the makings of a trilogy. It's a competitive enough fight on paper, and then the business apparently has been smoothed out to make sure we can see it twice, which makes it much easier to see it 3 times. But I do think we'll see it twice. I don't know about unless it's going to be a competitive fight, and both guys have the right to activate it again, so we will see it twice. 3 times, I don't know. The game is only on PC, SR 518. DeAndre C, am I still undefeated in the game? I'm undefeated on ranked. I stopped playing ranked. I'm at 16-0 and just kind of retired it there. I've been losing a little bit more on unranked because they got these dudes using Canelo Alvarez, for example, throwing 1,200 punches a fight. Canelo's career high in a 12-round fight is 622 punches. The Golovkin rematch. There are people playing this damn game throwing 1,200 punches around. The chest would explode out of Canelo's chest and he would die in the ring before he could throw that many punches. And all, so they got to fix it a little bit. But I'm still undefeated on the FightHype live streams. That's why I got the knockout and ended it. I want to keep that undefeated streak going here on the lives. Fire My Bone says, I don't see Canelo fighting Spence. Yeah, probably not. But if Spence can beat Crawford and he could give, Canelo is only 5'8". Spence is actually a little taller than him. Canelo maybe not wanting to fight these big guys as he enters the latter stages of his career, but still wants to fight in big fights. That would be Errol Spence if he could beat Crawford. He'd be a guy not nearly as big as Benavidez, Bivol, and Beterbiev, but still a highly credible pound-for-pounder. Fight at Texas where the Cowboys play, it would be sold out with Spence fans from Dallas and with Mexican fans for Canelo. It'd be a huge fight. Hardcore boxing fans would say, come on, this is silly. This dude's moving up 3 weight classes, but the casual fan, all they would see is undefeated Errol Spence measuring up to the same size as Canelo. They look the same size to their naked eye, and it would be a big fight. So I could see it happening. PBC technically already offered Canelo that fight, right? Last year. So it's something they've thought about long and hard, probably. Spence is older than Canelo, says Sony. Yeah, but Canelo's had more than twice as many fights as Spence. And he's moved up 4 divisions. And he's fought tougher opposition than Spence. He's fought, 65, 66 fights, and Spence has had 27. I mean, he's had more than double the amount of wear and tear on his odometer than Spence has. So yeah, he's on birth date younger than Spence, but in the ring, he's had a lot more mileage on him than Spence has. Although Spence with that accident, that didn't help his prime either. But yeah, that's that, Sonia. So all right then, guys. Looks like that's about it. We will break down this fight for weeks to come between now and July 29th. Me and my man Ron will be covering that fight here in Vegas once it's fight week, but we got a long road to go until then. And I hope you guys join us on Fight Hype more as we talk about this fight in the lead up. We want to do it justice. It is a historical fight. It did take probably a little too long to get here for our liking, of course, but it's a fight that I think stylistically is going to deliver, and it will have its historical impact on the welterweight division in boxing's history. So I'm hyped. I'm hyped to cover this, and keep it locked in here on Fight Hype. I hope everyone has a great rest of the Sunday, and I hope to see everyone real soon. Thanks, everybody, and God bless. Take care.